Hello and welcome to session 1 of this pit bowl painting. We're actually going to get a lot done. We'll do almost the entire underpainting by the time we're done with this half-hour session. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got my Arches cold press. It's my new big bag of Arches fresh paper. I hope this will not have sizing issues. I've got my Holbein soft tape that I get from Nido, and I'm putting it on a backing board that I wrap in white duct tape to just add a little bit of water resistance and stability. And I'm just going to tape this guy down. This is a commission, and I'm painting it as an 8 by 10. And I just thought of something that would be fun and maybe a little daring, and that is to do an underpainting of really fairly bright colors. Because I see blue undertones, then red, pink, even some orange over here maybe. The worst that can happen is it doesn't look good and you start over. And it really doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, it's just 20 minutes out of your day. And if those 20 minutes end up being a mistake, oh well, just start over. All right, this is my kneaded eraser. If you're using paper that's not as strong and durable as Arches cold press especially, I recommend using something soft like this to just gently, but not completely, erase some of your lines, especially like around the white where they might show. These darker areas they probably won't show anyway, but some of these lines are pretty dark, so I'm just gonna lighten them a little bit, but I still very much want to see them in all their glory, so I'm not gonna erase too much. I've got my studio assistant here begging. She thinks she wants my water jar. All right, I'm gonna get some cobalt blue because I think I want some cobalt blue in this painting. I think I'll put it right next to the French ultramarine. And this is Winsor and Newton cobalt blue. I don't have much left. And then I'm going to use this straight from the tube. And then next, some cobalt blue. Isn't that pretty? It's a lot of cobalt blue. Probably got too much. That's why I don't like using paint straight from the tube, because it's so gloppy and then you waste some. You know, you get more than you wanted and it just makes a mess. So anyway, get some of this on here. Oh my gosh. I actually see some burnt sienna in here. I'm using my silver black velvet size 8 round. Really warm spot in there. And all this. Is try not to worry too much about painting inside the lines here when you're first developing your painting. I'm using very watery paint here and just letting everything merge and blend together. We'll put a lot more details over all this later. This is Winsor Violet going on, and I just want to keep everything really dynamic and changing in color to just add interest. That's on dry paper right there. You can see my paper's dry. So I'm just using really tea consistency, and I'm gonna try to remember to leave a little bit of that. Try to remember to leave highlights, and I didn't do a very good job. Over here is all really dark. And gosh. Here I mixed burnt sienna with a little naphthol red for that pinkish skin area under his nose. I'm going to paint around some highlights here. Again, you can see lower down on the dog, it's all dry where I painted that purple down on his neck. Painting negatively around some lights, very carefully around the eye. I'm leaving pure dry paper where I want white highlights. Next, I'll put in thick cream consistency paint for the dark cheek shadow. I add burnt sienna to purple to get a grayed down dark purple. And again, this is thicker paint, like milk to cream consistency, so that means I'm putting less water in it. And when I drop it into those moist areas, it'll bloom out slightly, but still hold its shape. If you get too much bloom, dry out your brush or wait until your paper's a little drier and then try again. Do you notice how when I'm making these dark areas, I keep my brush moving and I don't pick my brush up until I'm in a place where it can explode out, because it will explode out where you least want it to, and then so what I mean by explode out is when you pick your brush up and the paper is wet and your paintbrush was full of paint, the paint will kind of explode out the end of your brush and make a big round circle of paint explosion on your paper. But if you keep your brush on the paper moving, it will, just like I am doing here around that nose, see that line is staying in a line shape roughly. It's blooming out a lot, which I like that soft look for an underpainting. And I want to paint here before this dries and do a little dry brush. I love getting these little textures when I can too, right in here. It's pretty. Again, dry brush is when you, it's not so much that your brush is dry, it's that you use quick strokes on dry paper and it makes that nubbly texture that's perfect for fur, really. Also, Again, my paper is still really damp here, so you see I'm getting a lot of nice soft edges. And notice also I look at my reference frequently, and it tells me what to do. I paint all these marks on moist paper so they stay soft and not pasted on looking with hard edges. So you see I'm studying very closely these darker shapes of shadow in the dog's eyebrow area. I want to get these shapes pretty close because it really defines the personality of the dog when you get these eyebrow shapes in. So really look closely at your reference before you paint and just study it and think about what shape you need to paint to get those curved arches for the eyebrows. Now this is like half dry. It's such a perfect time to get in these soft yet pronounced darks. If only I had a steady enough hand for it. Barely. Well, that's getting too dry to do much. This is all getting too dry. So I'm just using my mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, very cream consistency. I'm getting as much done while I have this damp and fresh. Put the little eyeliner here, as much as I can get in. While it's all wet. I love how dreamy eyeliner looks when you paint it during the stage when your paper is damp going into buckling. If it's too wet, you're going to get blooms and your eyeliner won't maintain that line shape. It'll bloom out too much. So you can do a little test on your paper. You'll often see me do that. I'll just put a little dot on the paper and see how much it blooms out. And if it doesn't bloom too much, then I know I can paint my eyeliner with very thick cream consistency paint, and that's what you see me doing here. Now, because my paper is really getting a lot drier, it's still damp, but it's a lot drier. So here you can see it's dry, but where I put in the nostrils, they bloomed out just a little bit, and that soft look really looks nice, and it'll make your nose marks not look so stilted. And you can tell my paper is dry because how sharp the edges are here where I'm painting. I'm even getting a little dry brush. I'm even getting a little dry brush effect. All right, that's a good start. That's about as much as I can do in this area anyway. Next, I'll paint with my larger 3/4 oval to cover a larger chest area with burnt sienna on dry paper. And I'm going to use the side of my bristles and get a real textured, nubbly look. I'm going to get the heel of my brush a little bit dried out more. I'm going to use that as an opportunity to get some of these textural edges.
I like these dry brush textures for interesting fur effects. I like these dry brush textures for interesting fur effects. I'll add ultramarine blue to burnt sienna for a more chocolate, cooler brown.
Totally making things up here because, as you can see, I can't see what this dog looks like over here, but
Later on, I'll get these fur edges a lot more textured and refined.
I'm just getting a mix of burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and I'm going to make it dry brush for these areas over here. All right. I don't know. That's a good start. What do y'all think? I'll let that sit and think. What do I have in my brush here? I've got some dark.
I'll use the side of my brush bristles with swishy strokes to get more enhanced fur edges.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna let that dry. I see blue on the underpainting of these ears. So with just some junk cobalt blue, what appears to be junk cobalt blue on my palette. Do you see how it doesn't matter exactly what blue you use? It matters more that you use a blue. Doesn't matter what blue. And then this line goes. So I'll make sure I get that. I'm painting negatively around this little highlight of ear. I really like it.
I'm using tea consistency paint. You can see a little puddle there on dry paper with my size 8 round by Silver Black Velvet.
And I feel like the underpainting switches to a warm through here. And so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to get clean, clear water on my brush and just kind of blend all this together.
Remember, don't go in with a drippy brush. It'll create a cauliflower. You want to dab off your brush on some paper towel to get it to be dry enough to blend it with just a little bit of water in your brush like I am here.
So now this is all wet now. So I can go in with a little bit more burnt sienna. And just put a little bit more detail here and there.
Again, I'm still using tea to milk consistency paint. The darker you want your paint to be, the less water you add. But this is an underpainting, remember, so it's just going to shine through to the next layer we add.
So that's the underpainting. That's a very classic way to paint. Let that all dry, then we can go in and put the darker values over that. All right, and then I'm going to kind of paint a map for this one because there's a really cute line of ear edge that goes, it's a cute little arc. I certainly don't want to lose that. I like it a lot. And I could even make this underpainting purple. It's going to be so dark, but it doesn't matter too much. But there's this cute edge. This ear is going to be really dark.
Trying to pay extra attention to the cute little edges and nubbly. There's like a little crater in the side of his ear, maybe from a past injury or something. So I try to get those little characteristics in. So I think I got that ear arc that I really wanted so much. I just love that. And then this in here is going to be darker still yet against that. So I'm going to let that all dry. I like that. Dry out my brush a little bit, and I'm going to paint negatively around these fluffy little lip furs that are so cute. This chin has a lot of lines in it, so really pay attention. Make sure your drawing makes sense to you. And each line has a different color, and there's a line of white fur, and then there's that kind of pinkish lip line, and then another line. So just really study your reference photo here and just do what it tells you to do.
And then he's got a pretty burnt sienna little lower lip. I can go ahead and block that in.
I put a tiny little bit of red in that burnt sienna.
I have a little more red in it, but I can add that later. That all just kind of joins in with all this stuff here. A little more red. Then there's this super white little line. I think I'm going to switch to my very small little Aqua Elite Princeton size 4 long round to put in tiny little details and kind of mapping everything in at the same time for this lip There's a lot going on in this cute little lip. And there's this very thin sliver of lip that then gets thicker over here. And then I wiped out my brush. I didn't clean it out, I just wiped it out so that I can blend this up a little bit more. And then there's a thick line there, and then there's more burnt sienna dark along this edge. This is all dark. And there, I'll get some super dark junk off my palette and add a little water so it'll come off my brush, and just drop that in. All right. And then down in here we can add more fur details. I'll just get some burnt sienna. We'll make it really simple. How about we use the rake, or also known as a wisp brush. Rake brush or wisp brush. There's lots of different sizes. This one's so old I don't know exactly what size it is. You can get a set of them on Amazon though. It's good for putting in some fur textures. And I'm just going to go with kind of tea to milk consistency, pure burnt sienna, and just start layering some textures of fur. And I make my strokes go in the direction of the fur. And in fact, he has like a bit of a whirl here. And length of fur. So he's got shorter fur. And I can't tell what his fur looks in this area. So I'm just kind of winging it. All right. So these textures will show up after it dries. Try to use a light touch when you get to this white area, so you get kind of some nice fur details. Just build up the fur texture slowly that way if you want. All right. I'm gonna go in and put some more chocolatey brown colored fur in here with a mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. This makes a beautiful burnt umber color if you want to mix. Now this is got some burnt umber flavor in it already. And notice again how I'm painting, making my strokes about the length of the fur and in the direction of the fur. So try to pay attention to that when you're painting these short-haired dogs. And it's got gets darker as he goes around in space. Back in here, this gets a lot darker. He's in shadow. Just noticed I didn't put any collar on him. I wish I would have. I didn't think about it. I should have put a collar on him, darn it. How ridiculous is that I didn't realize that till just now. I was trying to hurry. And that's what happens. All this fur down in here is really chocolatey.
Thank you so much for joining me for session 1. And in session 2, we will get a lot of the second layer done, a lot of more darks put in, and we'll get the eye color in. So a lot of fun things will happen in session 2. So I'll see you then. Now go watercolor your world.